Hola, mi nombre es Heidi Nicole Reyes y estaremos discutiendo el desarrollo de ELL Language Development. Bienvenidos. Gracias por venir a mi presentación. Les agradezco que se tomen el tiempo de sentarse conmigo y aprender más sobre nuestros estudiantes del idioma inglés y cómo estoy trabajando arduamente para poder enseñarles el idioma. En esta presentación describiremos desafíos que enfrentan los estudiantes, leyes vigentes para proteger a los estudiantes del idioma inglés, instrucción inglesa, ¿qué puedes hacer para ayudar a los estudiantes? Oh, lo siento, ¿no me entiendes? How about now? Do you understand? Good. You just had first-hand experience of ELL students sitting down preparing for a presentation on a topic they must learn with no support. In this presentation, we'll be discussing ELL students and how we can support them. This presentation will go over laws in place to protect ELL language learners, challenges faced by students, the FSA, English instruction, what you can do to help students. First, let's go over the laws in place. There are two laws in place to protect the ELL students. The first being Equal Education Opportunities Acts, or EOA, or EEOA. Of 1974, it prohibits discrimination against students. It also requires school districts and state departments of education to take action to ensure equal participation for everyone, including removing language barriers for ELL students. Then we have ESSA, ESSA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act. Of 2015, it authorizes the U.S. Department of Education to award grants to state education departments, which may issue them a sub-grant to K-12 school districts. The sub-grants are intended to go towards improving ELL students' instruction and ability to meet state academic content and achievement standards. By accepting federal funds, districts are required to provide language accommodations to non-English speaking families. In 2005, national assessments of education's progress, for example, only 29% of ELL scores at or above the basic reading level compared with 75% of non-ELLs. National Centers for Education Statistics, the National Assessment of Education Progress, or NAEP, Reading and Mathematics, found these results. This is due to students needing to compete with fluent peers on the same standardized assessments while they're still learning to speak, read, and write in language to test in that the test is taken in. As an ELA subject teacher, my students need to pass the ELA FSA to get their diploma. And we'll go a bit further into that in a moment. For ESOL students, they're required to take the same test as everyone else, but they may have accommodations in place to assist them. So, what are our challenges? Well, learning the language on top of learning the lesson, culture shock, and misidentification. Much like stages of grief, students go through stages of culture shock. Stage 1, the honeymoon euphoria stage. Stage 2, rejection. Stage 3, integration. And Stage 4, adaptation. According to the dictionary, the theoretical framework of culture shock describes the feeling of disorientation that students, ELLs, experience when they're suddenly introduced to a culture that is new or unfamiliar. Of course, there's also misidentification. Students struggling may not be properly identified. Teachers of the school may think it's a lack of English language skills when it could really be learning and thinking differences. Or just as often, they make the opposite mistake. They may think the student has learning and thinking differences when they just don't have English language skills. Younger students tend to be underdiagnosed with learning and thinking differences, while older students tend to be overdiagnosed. Now, what is the FSA? The Florida Standard Assessment, which debuted in 2015, is a group of reading, writing, and math tests designed to measure students' grasp of educational concepts in each grade, as spelled out in the Florida Standards. Now, what is the purpose of the FSA? Results from the FSA exam are used to drive instruction and make goals for state schools. They're also used to measure individual student achievement in terms of readiness for graduation, as well as school-based goals such as what students should be knowledgeable of at particular grade levels. And is this a requirement? Well, according to the Florida law, students must meet a certain academic requirement to earn standard high school diploma from public schools. This means that students must pass required courses, earning a minimum number of credits to earn a minimum grade point average, and pass the required statewide assessments. Students who meet these requirements but do not pass the required assessments will receive what is called a certificate of completion, which is not equivalent to the standard high school diploma. The passing scores for statewide assessments are determined by the state's Board of Education. Now, what does this all mean in general? What it means is ELL students not only have to compete with their fluent peers on a test in a language they fully do not comprehend, but they also need to pass said test with the minimum score to receive their high school diploma. Otherwise, they receive a fancy piece of paper that said you showed up, but you didn't earn what you needed. Basically, a participation trophy. What is the current ELL pass rate? Well, unfortunately, the Florida State Assessments has an average pass rate of 53% for English and 48% for math. ELL students, however, have a 15 to 35% pass rate in ELA, and 19 to 36% in math. Our data ranges is provided due to the various resources having inconsistent data, even within the Department of Education. So, what are the 5 components of literacy? Why is this needed? How can we ensure that these students will pass the FSA? As a teacher, it's my duty to assist my students in their understanding. ELL students benefit from understanding the components of literacy and building up these skills not only in literature but also conversationally can assist them. So we have comprehension can be built visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, and these help students build a foundational comprehension. First, phonemic awareness. Phonemes are the largest unit making up the spoken language. Phonics, this is the relationship between the phonemes, the sounds, and graphemes, the letters and the spelling that represent those sounds. Vocabulary development is the stored knowledge of meanings and pronunciation of words gathered over time to assist in communication. And of course, fluency is the accuracy and speed an individual can read. All these build together for comprehension, the accumulation of all these skills equaling into understanding and reading. Classroom activities examples for 9th and 10th grade ELL students. My focus is on the high school level because this is the level that is needed to pass the FSA. What can we do to assist these students? Students still learning English can make use of Rosetta Stone program to help build their phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension skills. The students make use of at least 15 minutes a class period on the program to help build their language skills. Students learn at their own pace and begin to gain confidence in both speaking and reading. Then there is also small group instruction, utilizing reading and conferring. Students will have Fridays to read a book of choice before breaking into small groups to discuss and log information about the book that they are reading. ELL students can read a book in their own language but summarize in English. And when the teacher comes to conference with the students, they make use of in-class support or make use of their allowed resources to be able to assist with communication. Home activities. Home activities are very important. These help build up skills. So according to the Center for Improvement of Early Reading Achievement, vocabulary is directly in the Through conversations mostly with adults, listening to adults read to the student, and reading extensively on their own. Um, these are ways that students can improve their early reading achievement. For ELL students, watching videos or movies in English with subtitles in their own language can assist students building vocabulary with their families. Task and action. Listed in this slide are tasks and actions given to students to practice on their own. These actions help students build up their skills and master the language quicker. It is my belief that students need to be tested where they are. And due to my lack of control on whether or not they're going to receive standardized tests, I do believe ELL students need to work harder to match up with their peers. How this can be done. Relevance is how you use the language. You master the language by using it. That can be just having a conversation with someone about a specific item or a specific topic, and you understanding that will help you build relevance. Begin to communicate from day one. Even if you stumble, keep trying. ELL students need to communicate. There is, however, a silent period where students are just building their knowledge on what's an understanding of what someone may be saying. The problem is practice makes perfect. They have to practice, and there is a lack of confidence that these students need to have. So I'm not saying push the students to speak, because everyone knows you can push and push and push. It may not always work, but letting them know that this is a zone where they are able to communicate even if they make a mistake. Comprehensible input is when you unconsciously acquire the message and you begin to understand it. Speaking takes muscles, training your face to talk in English. So when you are dealing with vocabulary with a student, the way you pronounce a word, taking the time to slowly enunciate, showing them how their lips are supposed to move, how their tongue should sit in their mouth. This gives them the ability to learn those skills so they can become fluent speakers. And most of all, it's easier to learn when you're relaxed. If you feel relaxed in the space that you are practicing, you will begin to practice. You will begin to make attempts to speak. There are also many different ways that I explain to my students, such as listening to English, making sure they soak their brain in the rhythm and the pattern of the language, focus on meaning before the words, so understanding the body language when somebody is speaking, understanding what the word itself means and how it is utilized. So building the vocabulary through that understanding. I can tell you a word 500 times, but if you don't understand what that word means, you will never use it when you speak. Practice mixing languages. Half a sentence in English is still English. Spanglish exists for a reason. Just mixing your language. You use as much as you can, and then if there's a word that you stumble on, use your own language. There is context clues. People can piece together what you are trying to say. English is a huge puzzle, just bits and pieces, and sooner or later you will have that full English sentence. Finding an adult you can practice with, someone who will work with you to understand what you are saying and not correct your mistakes. You want someone to confirm what you are trying to say and explain it to you how to say correctly. Direct to connect, it's okay to use images to understand words, making connections between real world objects and language. Just finding all these little pieces while you are working together, working to build that language, and eventually the student will take over and understand what they are either trying to say, or will be able to fluently ask a question, be able to fluently communicate with their peers, but communicate with the teacher. Eventually the student will get there. The problem is, when it comes to crunch time with the 9th and 10th graders, they're trying to catch up with students who've had 15, 16, sometimes even 17 years to learn the English language, and they only have a couple of months. So we are playing a game of catch up that it's going to take a while, but building that community within the classroom will help them develop that language. We may not get them to 10th grade English, but we can jumpstart somebody who's never spoke a word of English in their life, and by the time FSA rolls around, we have a student that is able to speak English, maybe not fluently, but with some level of understanding. Overall, this is my presentation. I hope that it was able to assist you. If you have any more questions or if you have any concerns, please shoot me a message and I'll be more than happy to communicate with you. This was a way for me to put some of my learning out into the world, and I would love to share with somebody and receive some feedback. Thank you and have a nice day. Here are my references. Plenty of my references are here. Just going to let me move my face off the screen. Alrighty, thank you all for your time.